Okay, we're recording again for part 2. This is going to be chapter 3 of the Hersey book that we were just focusing on management and organizational strategies. We already did chapter 1 and chapter 2, and we had a lot of discourse before we even started, so we kind of ran out. We had like 20 minutes of discussion before we even started with the presentation. So this is chapter 3 with Tanya, and we were having some technical difficulties with the video, so I did want to show that real quick. I'm going to screen share starting now. And then, Lord knows. Okay, so there's us, and then here's this video that I wanted to show. It's less than a minute.
Needs are created equally. If I'm suffocating and can't catch a breath, I'm not going to be thinking about eating that burrito. And if I'm about to be ravaged by lions, I'm not going to be worrying about my next paycheck. American psychologist Abraham Maslow illustrated this shuffling of priorities in the mid-1900s with his famous hierarchy of needs. Down at the bottom of the pyramid, you'll find our most basic physiological needs for food, water, air, and moderate temperatures. The next rung up speaks to our need for safety. Then comes love and belonging, followed by esteem or respect. And finally, once all those needs have been met, we have the relative luxury of being motivated by self-actualization and spiritual growth and yoga retreats and stuff. Of course, there are problems with Maslow's vision. Empirical research hasn't really supported his hierarchy. We tend to skip around on that pyramid all the time, and the importance of those higher-level needs may vary depending on our culture and finances and personalities. But still, everyone is restricted by the lowest levels of the pyramid. So regardless of theories about why we have them, most schools of psychological thought agree.
Were you guys able to hear that and everything?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that just hit home the point that I was, kind of trying to get at with the hierarchy of needs. So here you go, Tanya. You just tell me when to switch down, and we'll get after it.
Okay. Chapter 3 was motivational theories, and asked the question, what motivates you? To the next one. This chapter, we will be highlighting the theories that were developed by researchers concerning their discussion as to what motivates people. There were several different pioneers that I'm going to take a look at, such as Elton Mayo, Douglas McGregor, Chris Eric, I can't say his last name, and George Homans, and Frederick Hellsberg, and Abraham Maslow, that we will discuss within this particular chapter. Chapter 3, it introduces Elton Mayo. He was a graduate from the Harvard Graduate School of Business and Administration, and he contributed his human relations movement. The study began in 1924 at the Hawthorne, Illinois plant of Western Electric Company by studying the effects of illumination in the work environment on productivity. This was a great study. I really enjoyed reading this study, and it examined the time that managers solely wanted to increase productivity. They were not really concerned with the emotional needs of workers. However, the study showed that if interviews were structured, they produced less morale. But if it was an unstructured interview, it produced great morale within the company. When the test subjects felt that they mattered, they were able to produce more versus if they didn't feel that they were really needed and things of that nature, then they didn't want to produce, they didn't want to come to work. The study signaled the need for management to study and understand relationships among people. We also took a look at interpersonal relationships that were developed on the job. It affected productivity, not just their pay or the working conditions. It also affected their interpersonal relationships.
The good points, Tanya. That all relates back to those incentive pieces that we were talking about earlier. This is good.
Right. Yeah. Also, Mayo applied the term anonymity, feeling of helplessness, a condition that was characterized by the workers as being unimportant, confused, and unattached, or victims within their own particular environments.
I like the lineup, though.
Yeah, I like that motivation lineup, though.
Okay. Then we took a look at the theory X and theory Y. And this was with Douglas McGregor. and this was developed in 1957. What he stated was that the Theory X assumes that most people prefer to be directed. They don't want to assume responsibility, nor do they want to safely. They want safely more than I can't remember what I said. They don't want to be directed. People don't want to assume the responsibility. They want to feel more safe and secure than anything else. With Theory Y, it assumes that people are not lazy by nature and unreliable, but when people are motivated, that they can be self-motivated and they can be creative at work. When we look at managers that use the Theory Y, they're more controlling. They supervise their employees very closely. They think the employees should be threatened in order to get the job done. When we look at Theory Y, it is the opposite. Managers use supportive and facilitating means of getting employees to do their work. They view that employees are self-motivated. They depend on their environment. They see the work as a means of satisfaction with the Theory Y. But when we look at Theory Y and Theory X, are assumptions that human nature is not management. It's not management styles. They're looking at the human nature, not the way that people are managed. Mm-hmm. And the question that I put here, as an administrator, how could you relate to this particular theory?
I like that question, Tanya.
That's a good
I really
question.
do. I think it's all about how we're supposed, everything we've been learning, you're needing to distribute leadership, find and recognize talent in others and empower them to help you out so that a school will be run by many rather than a few. And I think that hits on those Theory X's and Y's if you relate it to education.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Drew. It seems like we all would be Theory Y people, where we believe we support and facilitate.
Right.
You should be.
Yeah,
Should be.
right. It should be. Okay. All right. The next thing is we'll take a look at the work groups. And looking at the work groups, the work groups from George C. Homans. And it says, this was a quote that he had, what is a group? A group is a collection of individuals who interact with one another over a span of time and who are few enough so that each person is able to communicate with all others, not through other people, but face to face. Okay, the next. But according to Holman's research, he looked at the informal and formal work groups to see how they were controlled by their behaviors of their members while controlling productivity. Holman's used three different elements in a social system. They were activities. They looked at the tasks that people performed. It looked at the interactions. The interactions looked at like the behaviors that occurred between people performing those particular tasks. And then we looked at sentiments. And sentiments is like the attitudes and the feelings that were developed between individuals within the group, within a group. And when we look at these concepts are all separate, but they're closely related and mutually dependent on each other. When you have a change in one of the two, if you have a change in one, then you're going to have a change in the other two also because they're so closely related. And as I put, according to the text, jobs are the activities. They have to be done that people are required to work together, and that's the interactions. And then those jobs must sufficiently satisfy the sentiments for people to continue to doing their work. So all those things, like I said, are interrelated. They go hand in hand. And over time, sentiments are more developed. The more present they are, the more people tend to interact with each other. And working together, sometimes we have that groups, they need to make sure that they develop over time and a more how positive they are. They tend to learn how to behave or what is expected of them. The next one is, increasing interpersonal competencies with Chris. How do you say his last name?
Is it Rodriguez? How would you say that?
Rodriguez? Okay.
Rodriguez?
I will say that. According to the text, Rodriguez compared I can't say that either. Bureaucratic or pyramidal, I can't say that either. Values similar to the theory X assumptions, the theory Y, and the humanistic or democratic values. He believes that bureaucratic, I can't say it, bureaucratic and pyramidal values lead to mistrust, intergroup conflicts, and rigidity. And he also looked at in which in turn leads to decrease in organizational success as far as in problem solving. Humanistic and democratic values leads to trusting and authenticating relationships that will be developed among people, resulting in increased interpersonal competencies, intergroups cooperations, and flexibilities. I'm sorry, I'm rushing. Go ahead.
You're fine. I'm sorry.
No,
you had so much.
Then he also looked at, with this chart, it looks at the immaturity and the maturity of an organization. And with his study, he said the most formal organizations tend to reward immaturity rather than the maturity of the people. He mentioned most workers are encouraged to be passive, subordinate, and dependent.
Yeah.
Did you have to say something?
Oh, I just said it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very interesting. But I think sometimes we do reward immaturity versus sometimes the maturity of how someone's handling something. I know at school sometimes we are being immature. How do we cater to them? You know what I mean? Versus the ones versus the ones that are acting mature. The ones maybe that are acting out, or acting, throwing paper. I'm just using an example. We do try to, hey, if you don't do this, I'll give you this, that capacity.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Right.
Kind of like, yeah.
Okay. The next one.
The last one.
Okay. Then we look at motivation hygiene theory with Frederick Hellsberg. And with this particular theory, McGregor and Argus are part of his studies. He set out to discover what kinds of things made workers happy and also made them dissatisfied, what things made them happy or satisfied. When he looked at the study, he found that there were two distinct categories of needs that operated independently and affected behavior in many different ways. He looked at hygiene factors, and then he also looked at their motivating factors. So some of the things that I have here, as far as your motivating factors, motivating factors are involved in feeling an achievement, professional growth, and also recognition. They are capable of having a positive effect on job satisfaction. Motivators include, as you see from the chart, achievement, recognition, responsibility, accomplishments, a challenge, and also challenging work, and also increase in responsibility, growth, and also development. Okay.
That was the last slide that I had there, Tanya. So if you had anything else to say, then you can go for it.
Let me see. What else could I say about that? Maslow when you look at Hellsberg and Maslow provides a help in identifying needs or motives, while Hellsberg provides an insight into incentives or goals. In a motivating situation, when managers know what the strengths or high strengths needs of followers are, the manager should be able to identify the goals that can provide in an environment that would need to motivate those employees also. That's all I have.
Very good, Tanya. That's a lot of to cover, Tanya. That was very good.
It is. All right, good job. There was it gets pretty heavy there in chapter 3.
Yeah.
So once again, that was assignment 1 from this book, the management and organizational theories. We're group 1. Shanetta, Tanya, and Drew, and you'll be getting 2 links. Well, I guess this will be the second one, but thank you very much. So I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording. And
All right.
hold on 1 minute. Let's see here.
It's recording.